So hello, Katie. Nice to meet you, and thank you for joining us today. Katie is all the way across the world is it Australia?
New Zealand.
New Zealand, sorry.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, already messing up. um, and Katie and I actually, the past interviews I've done have been with people who I either know or people who I've met through the Rad for Warriors pages. But you and I actually have never ever interacted before, so another first for us at Rad for Warriors. Katie and I are both in Yes Theory. I don't know, is it like a fan club? I don't know what it's called, but basically, someone posted about chronic illnesses, and I had to post something to see if anyone had CRPS, and Katie answered, and here we are.
Yeah. Quite interesting.
So to get us started, why don't you take us back to the beginning? So how long have you been diagnosed with CRPS? When did you start first feeling symptoms? Where is it? And how did you cope with the uncertainty that goes with the diagnosis process?
So my story is about coming up 10 years long, and there's lots of different parts of it, but the start of it was back in July 2010.
Wow.
I was 9 going on 10, so I had all I did was rub my ankle when I was running football.
Oh no.
I was so athletic that I kind of just brushed it off to the side, like, oh, it's not too bad. And about half an hour later, I decided to go play football on the field. And I noticed that something wasn't quite right, like it wasn't a rolled ankle or something. And I actually had to sit down, which was something that I didn't do. I was so active. And then I think for about a week or two, I kind of just dealt with it. And then I re-rolled it. And I couldn't cope with it. So we ended up going to the doctors, and I went to therapy. And it was quite a few weeks of intense physical therapy. Sorry, my cat's just jumping up. Intense therapy when my physical realised that something else, and I'm actually lucky that I came across her and she knew a little bit about the syndrome, and she gave a heads up to my mum and said, like, I think I might be getting symptoms of this and that we should look into it.
Wow.
So it was only a matter of a few weeks or a few months that I got diagnosed.
Wow.
But being in New Zealand, I don't think a lot of the population, and not a lot of doctors had come across it. So even though I had a diagnosis, it wasn't like I know some people's case, like it's a miracle that they finally know what's wrong. Because with me, I knew what was wrong with it, but no one did.
Oh no.
So it was quite difficult.
That's I mean, so on one hand, yeah, it's great to get the diagnosis, and on the other hand, what happened next? So obviously you get the diagnosis, and now you're trying to find ways to mitigate it as much as possible to mitigate the pain. For those who don't know, with CRPS, the earlier you get diagnosed, the earlier you can get treatment, the less overall pain you feel, hopefully. And it's obviously not in every case, but hopefully, the less overall pain you feel on a day-to-day basis. So I just wanted to yeah.
I guess I was lucky in a sense because I knew, and we could do our own research.
Mm-hmm.
I came across so many doctors who just had no idea what I was going through. I couldn't get treatment or anything like that probably as soon as, like, ideally it would be useful. But we did cross a few doctors who would push us in a direction, but all those directions would just end up as dead ends, and there was just not a lot that the medical teams in New Zealand could do for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got diagnosed. I got from I was a pretty old doctor, and I think he had come across one other person who had had it before. And I just remember when he told me, like, oh, the first thing was, oh, so it won't hurt when I brush my hair, or like I had no idea the extent of what I was like, the journey that I was starting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where? So it's in your leg, right? It's in your ankle.
So it started off in my right ankle,
Mm-hmm.
and then about a year into my journey, it had then spread all the way up to my hip, and then onto the other leg, and
Mm-hmm.
I was basically crippled from my hips down in both legs with
Wow. So it really spread fast then.
yeah,
Wow.
I would say within the year, it was no longer just in my ankle. I'm not too sure exact dates because it was such a hard time for
Yeah.
a 9-year-old, 10-year-old to go from completely active young child to no longer being able to move. Yeah, so I
Right.
think a lot of locked out in a sense.
Yeah. I mean,
And yeah.
wow. I can only imagine. Like, I talked to someone. I did an Instagram live with a young girl named Jordan who's 16, and she got it about 6 years ago. So basically, the same type of time frame. It was about 9 or 10, and it's like you go from being an active kid to just everything being taken away, and I can't imagine what that's like. Uh, could you kind of go into what you were able to do to cope at that time? I mean, you were so young.
Yeah, I think when you get like, honestly, when you get chronic pain, like that is such a bad thing. But with me, mental illness then set in because I went from having one lifestyle a complete other, like parallel universe almost. I went from every day not sitting still to having to sit there. And so from about 2010 to 2013, I was just in this like rut, like I couldn't escape it almost. And I went through a lot of like depression like stages and a lot of anxiety. I would cope being home. So comfort for me, and I just really didn't do a lot apart from the one thing I did manage to do was a lot of horse riding. And
Really?
I'm not sure if a lot of people know, but like when you ride horses, it tricks your brain into thinking that you're walking.
Huh.
So it does like it helps with mental state because obviously you're doing something really nice, but it also tricks your brain and that was like a real good thing for me when I was younger. Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. That really horse riding gets your brain to think that you're walking.
Yeah, so it's really good for a lot of people with lots of different disabilities to
Huh.
get it, and it also strengthens neck muscles, and that was probably the only muscle I had was from being on a horse.
But as you mentioned, there still was, I'm sure, a ton of pain with the just like the legs clanking on the side of the horse. But for you, that was worth the pain.
Yeah, there was a lot of things around it, like I wouldn't have my feet in the stirrups and stuff like that, and I think for me, I was really lucky when the one thing that I benefited from like getting diagnosed quite early on was the sensitivity, which I was extremely sensitive to touch and that sort of thing. But I managed to wear shoes, which a lot of people couldn't.
Right.
Where I would refused to walk without shoes because I was so scared of any other sensation underneath my feet, or I just didn't like the feeling of anything else. So having shoes on, when I could walk, I would walk, but when I didn't have shoes on, I think it was like another coping thing. I just walked because I hated the thought of touching anything underneath my feet. Or
Right. Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. And that feeling is known as allodynia. And so, okay, so now we've gone through age 13. So you're going into high school.
yeah. So from age 10 to 13, like I said, it's kind of a bit of a blur. Like I don't know complete facts and stuff, but I remember just not getting like any help from any medical stuff. Like all they would do is medicate, and
Right.
from my experience, I know it's different for other people, that made me a lot worse than it actually, because a lot of the medication I was on were for adults and I was just a little kid.
Right.
And so it caused a lot of trouble for my like state. And so once I stopped that, it must have been about, I think around age 13 when I stopped like medicating.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'm just a little lost.
No worries. While you gather your thoughts, I'll just say that's also a very interesting point that I don't think anyone else has touched upon yet, as far as these interviews go, is getting medicated as a child with adult level drugs, and the brain is still developing as a child, and so doctors are much less willing to give these kinds of medications out. And yeah, for some people it does help, but it's very tricky with kids in particular, because I know my sister. Oh my God, there's like a we have like a medicine cabinet in my childhood home, and it's like just pill bottles. Like they're all empty because either they expired or we finished them, but it's just like mountains and mountains of pill bottles, and I'm just like, oh my God, like you're gone for a year or two, because I went off to college when she got diagnosed, and then like I come back and I like look into the thing and like, oh my God, this is crazy. um
Yeah. Yeah, I
uh,
think I know, like, because everyone is really different, and I've met quite a few people with the same condition, and what works for them, what works for me doesn't work for them. And I know that throughout those 3 were really tough 3 years of kind of learning, because it was a learning curve for me, my family, also for the teams in New Zealand, because no one really knew what they were doing, and I was kind of like almost like a test subject. And
right.
I'd go to one doctor and they'll say, oh, well, that's not a thing, like I've never heard of it, therefore it doesn't exist. And then I'd go to another doctor and they're like, oh, I know what, you need to take this, this and this. And then I'd go to another doctor and they'll say, oh, that's not what you should be taking. So at the end of the day, I had like 100 of different diagnoses, and I had 100 of different like medications that I was supposed to be taking, and no one really knew what was going on.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, like at that point, what's it feel like going to another doctor? Like you go to doctor one and they tell you one thing. Like at what point did you, like, I don't know, like you walk in, it's like you're in despair almost, because you're walking in and you're like, oh my God, it's gonna be just like the last one where they give me a completely new thing, and or they're just gonna dispute the idea or the fact that I have this condition just because they've never heard of it. Like, how did you keep going to the doctors? Like, I know for a lot of people that's, you lose faith in the medical system almost, because you just know either they don't know what it is, or they give you different diagnoses. So like, yeah, how did you, good for you for keeping to go, and not stopping to try whatever it is.
Yeah, I think for me, I went to Google when I was old enough, and I used Dr. Google, and I found out that if I like it said somewhere I read that if you don't get rid of it within the years, you're going to have it for the rest of your life. And if you're young, you're more likely to recover, and like all these facts that are not proven or said because I don't forgot the reason. But in my head, I had given up hope, I guess, and I just thought as like another doctor, like a doctor's appointment, like another thing that I had to do and just get it over and done with. And like I said, I was in like this rut of a state. I don't think a doctor's appointment really was much to me. It was kind of just like, oh, it's something I've got to do and get over with, tell me that I'm doing this wrong or this isn't right, give me another diagnosis. It kind of, to me, just, I really didn't look at it as any help. I just did it because I had to. And yeah, I feel like everything was just dead ends. And as soon as I made the decision, and it was a big decision for like someone of my age to say like, nah, I'm done with the medical team. I'm done with them telling me that I'm not doing this right, I'm doing this, when I was just doing whatever I could to keep myself going and to keep myself like alive, I guess, because I'm a bad state. So I'm going a bit off track. I'm trying to
No, it's okay.
explain. Yeah, so I got to a stage where I was like, okay, I'm done with the medication making me have bad thoughts, and I'm done with the medications making me gain weight and just stuff. It was kind of like drowning my character out, and I was no longer me because of all this medication I was given. And so I called it quits, and I said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not sure if it was me giving up completely or if it was me wanting to try something at the time. I'm not too sure which one it was. But then as soon as I gave that up, I kind of had my thoughts back a bit more, like my own thoughts. And we came across alternative things, naturopathic doctors, and God knows I don't even know the answer of what they would call themselves, but I went to like tapping therapy. I went to this therapy that like they would scan your spine and it would put things into places, and I'm not too sure what those therapies were called, but we spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to find an alternative to help me because the medical system was basically failing me. I think that's a bit tough to say. I really didn't have a clue either, so it wasn't exactly their fault, but yes, and I wouldn't say that these things didn't help at all. Like a lot of the things that I did, they did give me some sort of relief, or helped me in some way, but they never fully got me like out of the cycle that I guess I was in. And I think the cycle people don't realize with chronic pain, I think not just CRPS, just like all sorts of things, is that you are in a cycle, and one thing leads to another. Like I know that a lot of people don't like to associate mental health with chronic pain because like chronic pain is real, and like so is mental health, but like they don't cause each other, but I think they do in a sense bounce off each other. So like you're more likely to not feeling like to feel good like mentally, and if you're not having like a good mentally stable day, your pain is probably gonna play up as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I thought it was really interesting that you call it CRPS. I've never heard of it in that, because we just call it, we just long form CRPS, but I kind of like that. I like it better. But yeah, mental health hasn't been a topic that people have touched upon their mental health, and of course it's not an easy thing to talk about, but CRPS or CRPS is known as the suicide disease, and so it's kind of like a taboo subject, but I'm glad you brought it up. And absolutely, I think there's definitely a correlation. I don't know if like one causes the other, but I think you keep getting beaten down by an illness over and over again, day in, day out, week after week, month after month, year after year. Like, of course, you're not gonna feel the best mentally either. So I'm glad, yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. So you end it with the doctors, you get off the medications, you start feeling a little better. Um, or I'm sorry, well, you start feeling more like yourself rather than um, what happened next? How did you move forward after that, and where are you now, and what are you up to?
So there's a lot in between, but I'll try and make it short and sweet. So yeah, when I came off the medication, like my mental self kind of returned because so drowned out by it. My cats are in the background. Sorry, I'm just brain fogging a lot. Cut out. I'm just trying to.
If you want, we could if you'd like to explain what brain fog is, because that's another topic that not a lot of people have shared. I'd love for you to explain what it's like right now when you're trying to explain something and pieces are coming in and out.
Yeah, for me, I think I would describe brain fog as like almost like a mind blank, and like I know what I want to say, but I'm not too sure what way to word it and what
Mm-hmm.
way to get it out, because you're so busy dealing with all like the things on the side, like the chronic pain and that sort of thing. Thought process becomes, I had all these things that like I wanted to say, and they're kind of just all squished together, and I'm not sure what way I wanted to say it or how I wanted to put it, or if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It kind of gets jumbled all up in there, right? Are there any?
Yeah, and I just, yeah,
No, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say that's one thing I think I struggle with extremely badly is brain fog. Like that was one of my big symptoms that came along with CRPS, was definitely that, and it's never left.
Yeah. How has that affected like school? I mean, if it started at the very beginning, I can only imagine. Like I assume by now you've kind of got a little bit of a system going, but still, getting through it every day, it's just another barrier.
Yes, school was definitely not a top priority for me in those first 3 years, because the top priority was keeping me like going, I guess, and coping with day-to-day things like brushing my teeth and getting my hair brushed, and small things like that were more important than it was to attend school. And that was really, really hard for me because I loved school and I loved my social life, and I was a social butterfly. I had so many friends. And for me, I couldn't do that because I couldn't even stand up in the morning.
Right.
So schooling had not been a priority, and so I for those 3 years. But I was enrolled under the hospital school, so I did get schooling done day to day, occasionally, but it was definitely a hard time.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for watching. In order to make sure that the videos aren't too long and that people watch through to the end, we're chopping up some of the longer interviews into segments. So Katie's interview will be chopped up into 3. The first one, which you've obviously already watched. The second one will go live on Thursday, and then the last one will go live on Saturday. We just wanted to make sure, an hour-long video is a lot of time, and want to be cognizant of people's time. So
thanks again for watching. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to watch some of our other interviews, which will pop up on the screen. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. See you later.